Have you ever found yourself thinking, why is life so hard? When will the pain finally stop? Why do I keep reaching for happiness, only to fall into disappointment again and again? No matter how hard we work, no matter how determined we are to stay positive, life always seems to place suffering and dissatisfaction right back in our path. Maybe you're feeling this way right now. Maybe you're carrying a quiet weight, a sadness you rarely speak about. Often, we blame ourselves. We think, it's because I'm weak. It's because I didn't try hard enough. It's because I made the wrong choices. But what if suffering isn't a personal failure at all? What if suffering is woven into the very nature of existence itself? Today, we turn to one of the most powerful minds in philosophy, Arthur Schopenhauer. Together, we will explore a question that has haunted humanity for centuries. Is the suffering of life truly unavoidable? Schopenhauer once wrote, "Life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom." It sounds brutal, even hopeless. But if we dismiss Schopenhauer as simply a pessimist, we miss the depth of his insight. He wasn't trying to make us despair. He was trying to show us reality, stripped of illusions, so that we might find a deeper, more honest way to live. When we stop resisting the truth of existence, when we see pain not as an accident, but as a fundamental part of life, something powerful begins to happen. We become free. Today, through Schopenhauer's ideas, we'll explore why pain is so deeply rooted in our lives, why our desires seem endless, and how we can live more peacefully by understanding, rather than fighting, the nature of reality. Stay with me until the end, because somewhere in today's journey, you might discover a new perspective on your own struggles, a shift that doesn't promise to erase pain, but transforms the way you carry it. And in that quiet transformation, you might just find a kind of freedom you didn't know was possible. Arthur Schopenhauer was not a man who painted life in bright colors. He looked at the human condition with clear, unwavering eyes, and what he saw was endless striving, endless dissatisfaction. At the center of Schopenhauer's philosophy is one haunting idea. Life is ruled by an invisible, relentless force he called the will. This will is not the rational, conscious will we usually think of, not the will to make choices or decisions. No, it is a blind, irrational, insatiable force that drives all living beings. It is the will to survive, to want, to desire, without end, without reason. From the tiniest insect struggling toward a drop of water, to the human heart yearning for love, success, recognition. Everything, Schopenhauer said, is animated by this restless, endless will. And because the will can never be fully satisfied, suffering is built into life itself. Even when we achieve what we think we want, satisfaction quickly fades, and new desires rise up to take its place. Think about it. How many times have you longed for something, a job, a relationship, a dream, believing that once you had it, you would finally be happy? And how often, once you got it, did that happiness feel thinner, shorter lived than you expected? How often did new worries and new desires quickly fill the space where contentment was supposed to live? Schopenhauer understood this pattern deeply. He saw that life wasn't just about the occasional hardship. Life itself is hardship, because life is desire, and desire is endless hunger. Pain, struggle, longing, these are not anomalies to be fixed. They are the natural rhythm of existence. The more intensely we desire, the more intensely we suffer. The will drives us forward ceaselessly, pushing us toward goals we believe will bring relief, only to reveal, once we reach them, that the hunger was not for the thing itself, but for the act of wanting, chasing, striving. And so, the pendulum swings. Pain and longing, boredom and fulfillment, again and again. To Schopenhauer, this was not a personal flaw. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't because you weren't trying hard enough to be happy. It was simply the nature of being alive. Understanding this truth doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean falling into despair. It means waking up to the reality that chasing permanent happiness in a world ruled by endless will is like chasing the horizon. Beautiful, but unreachable. Real peace, Schopenhauer believed, comes not from fulfilling every desire, but from loosening our grip on desire itself. It is in quiet acceptance, not endless striving, that true freedom begins. Imagine a young woman standing at the window of a New York City apartment. She's worked for years to get here. The degree, the job, the salary. She has everything she once thought she needed to be happy. And yet, in the quiet moments, she feels a hollow ache she cannot explain. At first, she tries to ignore it. Maybe she needs a new goal, a promotion, a bigger apartment, a better relationship. Maybe happiness is just one more achievement away. And so she throws herself into the chase again, fueling herself with ambition, pushing through exhaustion. But when the next milestone arrives, the satisfaction is fleeting, like a sunset fading into darkness, and the ache returns. Schopenhauer would say, this is the will at work, not her failure, not a mistake, but the very structure of life itself. Another man, somewhere halfway across the world, scrolls endlessly through social media. Each photo, each post whispers, your life isn't enough. Your success isn't enough. Your happiness isn't enough. He feels a quiet panic rising. He tells himself that he must do more, be more, have more. He buys things he doesn't need. He dreams of vacations, of luxury, of recognition. He runs faster and faster. But the finish line always moves further away. This too, Schopenhauer would recognize. The endless hunger, the endless dissatisfaction, the endless cycle of craving and disappointment. And then there's you and me. How often have we said to ourselves, if only I had this one thing, that job, that love, that recognition, then I would finally feel whole. We chase relationships, achievements, status, even spiritual experiences, believing each new thing will be the answer. And sometimes, for a brief, shimmering moment, it feels like it is. But soon enough, the shimmer fades. A new desire rises. The pendulum swings back. The will pulls us onward. The beauty of Schopenhauer's insight is that he does not condemn us for this. He doesn't say we are foolish or broken for chasing after happiness. He simply shows us that this is the nature of existence. To desire is to suffer. To live is to desire. Once we see this clearly, a new possibility opens. We can choose not to chain our happiness to the next achievement, the next possession, the next approval. We can step off the endless treadmill of craving, not by suppressing our nature, not by denying our desires, but by understanding them, watching them rise and fall like waves, without clinging so desperately to each one. In the quiet space between wanting and grasping, freedom waits. And in that freedom, perhaps for the first time, real peace can begin. Schopenhauer's philosophy invites us to shift our attention away from the frantic pursuit of happiness and toward a deeper acceptance of life's bittersweet nature, to live with open eyes, open hands, and an open heart, and in doing so, to find a kind of joy not in the fulfillment of every desire, but in the simple, miraculous fact of being alive at all. If suffering is woven into life because of the endless will, how can we ever find peace? Schopenhauer believed that there is no ultimate escape from the will while we are alive. But he also saw that there are moments, brief, luminous moments, when the will loosens its grip. Moments when, for a little while, we are no longer prisoners of endless wanting. One of these pathways, he said, is art. When we lose ourselves in a beautiful piece of music, when we stand breathless before a great painting, when we are moved by a profound story, something strange happens. For a moment, we stop wanting. We stop striving. We stop grasping at the world to fulfill our endless needs. Instead, we simply perceive. We see beauty not as something to be possessed, but as something to be experienced purely, without demand. In that stillness, we taste a kind of freedom. This, Schopenhauer believed, is why great art feels so deeply healing. It momentarily silences the will. It lifts us out of the endless cycle of hunger and dissatisfaction. Nature, too, can offer us this grace. When we watch the sun set over the ocean, when we listen to the wind moving through ancient trees, when we sit quietly by a river, we sometimes feel a stillness beyond words. In those moments, we are not chasing anything. We are simply present, alive, without needing life to be different than it is. Another path Schopenhauer pointed to is contemplation, a way of seeing the world without the desperate filter of desire. Instead of looking at everything through the lens of, "How can this serve me?" we learn to see things as they are, without clinging, without resistance. And in rare, extraordinary lives, some individuals have gone even further. They have chosen the path of renunciation, by consciously stepping away from worldly ambition, by surrendering the endless chase for pleasure and success. They seek to loosen the will's hold on their lives more completely. This, Schopenhauer taught, is the path of deep peace, a peace that does not depend on achieving every dream, but on understanding the nature of dreaming itself. Of course, for most of us, total renunciation is neither possible nor necessary. But even small moments of stepping back, moments of pure perception, pure being, these can transform our relationship with suffering. Instead of being endlessly trapped by the will, we can become witnesses to it. We can recognize the hunger without being consumed by it. We can feel desire rising and smile at it gently. We can feel pain arriving and make room for it without despair. Little by little, not by force, not by denial, but by quiet understanding, we find more space inside ourselves. Space to breathe, space to live, space to love, not as a desperate need, but as a quiet, radiant gift. Schopenhauer's vision was not one of easy optimism. It was not a promise of endless happiness. It was an invitation to see the world more clearly, to love more honestly, to suffer more wisely, and through that wisdom, to find a kind of freedom that no circumstance can take away. So how do we live, knowing what we know now? How do we carry Schopenhauer's wisdom into the ordinary days of our lives, into the messy, beautiful, exhausting reality we all share? First, we begin by noticing. Notice how often your mind reaches for something, a goal, a person, a possession, with the quiet hope, "This will finally make me happy." Notice how quickly that hope fades once the goal is reached. Not with judgment, not with shame. Simply notice, because awareness is the first step toward freedom. Second, practice moments of pure presence. When you find yourself caught in craving, pause, take a breath, look around, feel the air on your skin, hear the sounds around you. Let yourself be where you are, without needing the next thing to arrive. You don't have to renounce the world. You don't have to give up your dreams. But you can learn to hold them more lightly, to want without clinging, to pursue without losing yourself. Third, seek beauty without possession. Listen to music, not to own it, but to let it move through you. Watch a sunset, not to capture it, but to be captured by it. Love people, not to fill your own emptiness, but to witness and honor their existence. When we experience life in this open, ungrasping way, we find that moments of real joy come not from finally getting what we want, but from forgetting, even for a little while, that we were wanting anything at all. Fourth, understand that pain is not proof that you are broken. Pain is the echo of the will. It is part of being human. It does not mean you are failing. It does not mean you are less than others. It simply means you are alive. And life, as Schopenhauer reminds us, is both a burden and a miracle. Finally, ask yourself this: what if happiness is not a permanent state to be achieved, but a fleeting gift to be noticed? A glimpse, a breath, a moment of light along the way? What if peace isn't about eliminating all suffering, but about learning to sit with suffering without losing your heart? Today, maybe you can try. Try being a little gentler with yourself. Try loosening your grip on the next goal. Try noticing the small, quiet beauties already around you. Try seeing your own desires not as failures, but as the natural waves of existence. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to conquer the will. You can simply walk alongside it, awake and aware, finding your own small freedoms in the spaces between. And perhaps, in doing so, you will discover a kind of strength that does not depend on winning, a kind of joy that does not depend on having, and a kind of peace that no storm can ever take away. As we come to the end of our journey today, I invite you to pause for a moment. Breathe. Feel the simple miracle of being alive, here and now. Life, as Schopenhauer saw it, will always be a dance between longing and loss, between hope and disappointment, between striving and surrender. But within that dance, there is a deeper rhythm, a quieter music we can learn to hear, not by silencing all our desires, not by escaping from life, but by learning to see clearly, to feel deeply, and to live with open eyes and an open heart. Suffering will come, desire will rise, disappointment will visit, but so will beauty, so will unexpected laughter, so will moments of connection, so real and tender that they defy all explanation. Maybe we don't need to fight the tides of life so desperately. Maybe we can learn to ride them, to breathe through them, to find moments of stillness even in the storm. And in those moments, we glimpse a different kind of strength, a strength not based on winning, but on enduring, not on having, but on being. So let me leave you with a question. What if you stopped chasing happiness for a little while? What if you simply allowed yourself to be exactly as you are in this moment? No fixing, no rushing, no clinging, just being. How would your life feel different? I would love to hear your thoughts. If you feel called, share in the comments. A moment when you felt at peace without needing anything more. A time when you noticed beauty without trying to hold on to it. Let's create a space where we remind each other that life, even with all its imperfections, is still worth living, deeply, bravely, and beautifully. Thank you for walking this path with me today. And wherever you are, I hope you find small, shining moments of freedom, moments that remind you, you are enough, right here, right now.